Kim Kardashian is one of the only celebrities in modern culture whose then versus now doesn't feel like a glow-up. It feels like a power shift. The shocking part isn't that she became famous. The shocking part is that she took the loudest kind of public judgment and turned it into leverage, turning headlines into a business model and turning a last name into a global industry. People love to reduce her story to one easy sentence, but that shortcut is exactly where the real story begins, because Kim didn't survive the spotlight by accident. She learned how attention works, how scandal spreads, how the internet rewards outrage, and how to stay on top when the world is waiting for you to fall. This file isn't here to praise or drag her. It's here to answer one question with a timeline you can feel. How does a girl from a famous, complicated family grow into a woman who can dominate fashion cycles, redefine influencer culture, and still keep the public arguing about whether she deserves it? We're going back to the childhood. Blueprint, the first turning points, the rise that became a machine, and the cracks that kept reopening, until Kim Kardashian stopped being a person and became a symbol. By the end, the transformation won't be about aesthetics. It will be about control. Who controls the narrative, who profits from it, and what it costs to live inside a story the world thinks it owns. Kim's then begins inside a family that already understood visibility before social media made it universal. She grew up in Los Angeles, in a household where status, networking, and public image weren't abstract ideas. They were daily reality. Her father, Robert Kardashian, became widely known through his role as an attorney in one of America's most watched trials, and that moment placed the family's last name near the center of pop culture long before Kim was a brand. Her mother, Kris Jenner, moved like a manager long before the world called her one, reading people, reading rooms, and understanding that attention can be negotiated, not just received. For Kim, childhood wasn't just about growing up, it was about growing up adjacent to influence, learning early that the world rewards the person who knows how to present a story. And when you're raised in that environment, you learn a different definition of security. Not hiding from the spotlight, but controlling how it hits you. This is the childhood clue that later explains everything. Kim didn't become powerful because she had the perfect talent or the perfect moment. She became powerful because she understood the value of proximity, being close to the right circles, the right names, the right doors. As a young woman, she worked in fashion and celebrity-adjacent spaces that taught her an invisible skill, how to package a look, a vibe, and a narrative so it travels. That early training is why her then matters. It shows how she built the instincts that would later turn her into a magnet for cameras, instincts that look effortless on the surface, but are actually the result of years watching how fame is manufactured. And when the public later judged her as famous for being famous, they missed the deeper blueprint. Kim grew up learning that fame is a system, and systems can be hacked, if you're willing to be misunderstood long enough to win. Kim's first break wasn't a single talent moment the way it is for singers or actors. It was something more modern and more controversial. She stepped into a spotlight that didn't come with a script, then learned how to turn raw attention into a controlled narrative. The early wave of fame around her arrived fast, and it arrived with judgment attached. People didn't just watch, they evaluated. They didn't just follow, they decided what kind of woman she was. But instead of disappearing under that pressure, Kim did something that would define her entire career. She stayed visible, stayed composed, and stayed strategic. She understood that in the new media world, the person who survives isn't always the most respected, it's the most consistent. And consistency for Kim became a weapon. Every appearance, every photo, every public moment became a building block, not a random event. Then the real engine started, reality television. When Keeping Up with the Kardashians launched, it didn't just introduce a family. It introduced a business model where life itself became content. The show turned everyday conflict into storyline, turned relationships into seasons, and turned personal branding into a daily habit. And while critics called it shallow, Kim used it like a training ground. She learned pacing, narrative tension, and the art of making the audience feel like they know you, without actually giving them everything. That's when the rise shifted from famous to unavoidable. The public couldn't look away, not because everyone admired her, but because she made her life feel like an ongoing series with cliffhangers. And slowly, the biggest transformation began. She moved from being talked about to being able to shape what people talked about. Fashion became a battleground she could win. Social media became a stage she could control. And attention, whether it started as curiosity or criticism, became the fuel she used to build an empire. Kim's crack isn't one moment. It's the fact that her entire rise happens under a permanent question mark. From the beginning, she's forced to climb while people argue she shouldn't even be on the mountain. Early controversies and intense tabloid framing didn't just follow her, they shaped the public's first impression. And that matters because once the internet labels you, you spend years either running from the label or learning how to profit from it. For Kim, the crack is that she becomes famous inside a culture that treats judgment like entertainment, so every move is automatically a debate: image versus reality, strategy versus authenticity, fame versus deserving. QWTK then turns that debate into a weekly habit. The show premiering in 2007 isn't just a career move, it's an agreement to live inside a camera's logic. Conflict becomes storyline, family becomes brand, and private life becomes a product with seasons and cliffhangers. It's also where the world's obsession becomes permanent, because viewers don't just watch Kim succeed, they watch her relationship choices, her family power dynamics, and her identity evolve in public, then replay it endlessly. Over time, the crack gets sharper. The more she tries to build a stable public image, the more the audience expects access to the unstable parts. Then comes the event that rewires her relationship with visibility: the 2016 armed robbery in Paris. It's not tabloid drama, it's trauma, and it forces a shift from fame as opportunity to fame as risk. The moment someone can use your public footprint to find you, fame stops being glamorous and starts being dangerous. Years later, the case still echoes in headlines, with courts revisiting accountability and consequences, proof that the crack wasn't just emotional, it was structural. After that, Kim's public presence changes: more security, more caution, more control. Next, the crack moves into the legal and credibility lane, because the bigger your influence gets, the more your endorsements matter. In 2022, the U.S. SEC charged Kim Kardashian for promoting a crypto asset security without disclosing the payment she received, and she agreed to settle and pay $1.26 million in penalties, disgorgement, and interest. This isn't a cancel moment in the usual sense. It's a reminder that modern fame isn't just fame, it's commerce. When a celebrity is also an advertising channel, every post can become a headline, and every headline can become a liability. Facts also include the life shift that changed her now image: the unraveling of Kimye. She filed for divorce from Kanye West in February 2021, and the split played out under intense public attention, mixing family reality with a very public cultural storm around Ye's controversies and mental health narrative. Even without taking sides, the key storytelling point is this: Kim's adult era isn't just about being famous, it's about being a mother and a brand builder while the world tries to turn her private decisions into public spectacle. Rumors, internet war. Around every fact, there's always a louder cloud of speculation. The internet fights over what's real in her image: appearance rumors, staged moment accusations, relationship conspiracy theories, and meme-level claims like the Kardashian curse. Most of it is unverified, but it's part of the case file because it reveals the true conflict. People don't just consume Kim's story, they compete to own it. And that's why Part 5 matters. Because the now chapter isn't about proving everyone wrong, it's about building a life where the noise can't decide your identity anymore. Kim's now isn't just a more polished version of her then. It's a shift from being the subject of the conversation to becoming the person who sets the terms of the conversation. The same woman once dismissed as a reality TV headline learned how to turn constant scrutiny into a controlled narrative, where visibility is no longer something that happens to her. It's something she schedules, frames, and uses. She doesn't need everyone to like her. She needs them to keep watching long enough for the next move to land. The clearest proof is how her fame became infrastructure. Skims didn't work because Kim was famous. It worked because she understood what fame trained people to buy: identity, aspiration, and the feeling of being included. Over time, the brand grew from celebrity product into a serious machine, with major funding and a reported valuation around $5 billion, a number that signals she's playing in the same arena as major fashion powerhouses, not just influencer merch. But the reinvention isn't only business. It's credibility. Kim's law journey became part of her adult now, tying back to her father's legacy while reshaping how people read her ambition. Reports in 2025 note she completed her legal studies path and later shared results related to the California bar process. Whether or not the public agrees with her, it's a deliberate pivot from famous to serious. And then there's the quieter reinvention: boundaries. After years of living as content, Kim's now is built on selective access, showing enough to keep the story moving while protecting the parts that used to be open season. Even her reality era evolved into a more controlled format with the Kardashians, where the family still sells narrative, but on terms that feel more produced, more managed, and more intentional than the old chaos. Here's the part people don't expect when they click on a Kim Kardashian file: the moment where the story stops being about strategy and starts being about survival. Because behind the brand moves, there's a simple truth. Kim's life has been lived under a microscope for so long that the line between public and personal gets eaten away. The Paris robbery wasn't just a news cycle, it was a reminder that visibility has a physical cost, that fame can cross the screen and step into your room. After that, the way she carries herself changes. The confidence is still there, but it's tighter, more guarded, built on caution. And that's when the then versus now shift becomes real, not a makeover but a boundary. The emotional peak is that tension in her adulthood, being a mother while the world treats your family like content, trying to build stability while headlines keep pulling the narrative back into chaos. The divorce era isn't only relationship drama, it's Kim learning how to protect her children from a spotlight she can't fully turn off. This is where the childhood clue returns. The girl raised around power learns the hardest lesson about power. Sometimes the strongest move is not controlling the room, but knowing when to leave it. And the most human part of her reinvention isn't a brand valuation or a runway photo. It's the choice to build a life where attention doesn't get to decide what safety looks like anymore. Kim Kardashian's then versus now isn't a story about becoming famous. It's a story about learning how fame works and refusing to let it own you. The girl raised around power and public attention grows into a woman who understands the difference between being seen and being safe. That's the loop back to our opening question. Kim didn't win because the world approved of her. She won because she learned how to keep moving while the world argued. And the open ending is still waiting in plain sight. When the cameras stop, will Kim finally be a person again? Or will the world always demand the brand?